Like, did they say anything with the offer? Like, if I come in with a low offer because my clients want me to do it, I'll say.
This particular agent did not. This particular agent said, this is an all-cash deal, close in 30 days. This is a person who wants to renovate and then hold it, and blah, blah, blah. So, great, fine, but my client wasn't prepared to close in 30 days. So she didn't like that closing date. And the agent never asked me. How silly, right? If she'd called me, I would have told her. The seller is in Austria. The seller needs to have things notarized to get them approved and to sell this property. And that could take a month. We can't close in 30 days. We're not interested in rushing, right? And we're certainly, you get the point.
Yeah.
So asking the listing agent all these questions before you write an offer is really valuable, right? So, yes, so asking questions if you're gonna get a rejection, you could very well learn, what do I need to do to make this offer attractive to your seller? Well, give us our asking price. Okay, well, if I can't give you, if I don't want, my buyer doesn't want to give you asking price, can you give me an idea of, are they negotiable at all? Could you ask those questions? And sometimes you get the answer back and says, it needs to start with a 5. You know, okay, fine,
Right.
get it over 500, right? Would you please? Start with a 475, don't nickel and dime me in the 400s. Get it over 5, and I'll be able to talk to you, right? So agents will tell you quite a bit sometimes if you ask. So that's a great habit to get into. Okay, so going on to the next page, we're going to start with talking about representing the buyer, being prepared to write the offer, writing the offer, and presenting the offer to the listing agent. So let's go through our checklist here. And if we just go around the room and everybody read one of these, you want to start in the back, Shailen, that'd be great.
Yep. So obtain the buyer's pre-approval letter from their lender. Your client's offer will be more attractive to the seller if a pre-approval letter is submitted at the same time.
Right, we all know this already, right? You've gotten that into your brain, like, right, this is really important. What's something else that you should ask the lender? Timing, right? If your client needs to get a loan, they've got a pre-approval letter, and if you called up that lender, because you've never talked to that lender about the client, you said, well, hi, I'm working with Marion Haller, and she has this pre-approval letter, and I'm just writing up an offer. Are you available to write us an accurate, a revised pre-approval letter for the amount that we're gonna be submitting the contract for? Oh, sure, I can do that, but, and then, do you have any concerns? And he goes, well, Marion, you know. What do you mean, Marion, you know? And you go, well, the lender says, Marion's self-employed, and she has to provide a whole bunch of data for me. And I haven't seen a lot of it. I've seen enough to feel comfortable, but for the underwriter, I need a lot of information. So would you give her a little extra time to get all that documentation together? Ooh. So not a 30-day closing, we're talking 45, would you like 60 days? And goes, you know something, I think you're better with the 60-day closing. Now some people write offers for 45 days and they already know they're going to call the extension. I don't like that. That is not nice.
Can you explain that a little more?
Oh, sure. So we have an extension, a unilateral right to extend that is usually 10 days is what we fill in our template, and that's usually agreed to by the parties. And so some people will write a 45-day offer, but they know it's going to take 50 or 55 days, so they know they're going to call that extension. Why would you write a 45-day offer if you know it's going to take 50 days? Write a 50-day offer. You know, so just, that's my suggestion here, is just be upfront and straightforward, because the seller is looking to pack up and hire movers and get out of there and do all this stuff, and you want to, we go for win-wins, right? That's our goal.
You get a bad reputation when you do stuff like that.
Yeah, that's another one. It's like everybody starts talking about, so we don't want that. All right, good one. Next one, Cherish.
Produce a comparative market analysis, or CMA, to educate and inform your buyers.
Yeah, got to check, right? We've been looking for a while. Let's just make sure we know everything that actually sold, and, you know, or we just started looking and what's going on, right? Yeah, awesome. Jonathan?
When speaking,
No,
Oh.
review.
review the tax, that's a short one. Review the tax records for information about pricing history.
Okay, so pricing history is also in our MLS, right? That history button is awesome. But yes, you can definitely get it here. What else do you find here when you're selling a house?
There's a lot of information.
A lot of information. You can see on
How
anybody's
much they
tax
pay.
records, you can see if there's a mortgage. Did they take a mortgage out, right? Or you can see, wait, there's no mortgage dated this closing date. I guess there's no mortgage on this property.
Right.
Whatever, you can see that. You can also see our tax record when you click on the realist button, will tell you. The tax record says there are 3 bedrooms, the MLS says there's 4, right? It actually tells us that the tax record and the number of bedrooms in the MLS differ. Now you could ask them questions. Did you get a permit for this 4th bedroom? And they go, well, no, actually we just put up a wall and built a closet, and, you know.
Yeah.
So not a big issue, that one. An extra bathroom would be a big issue, right? Because that they clearly built without permit isn't such a good idea. So what's the issue with things that are not permitted?
If they're not permitted, then, well, the buyer needs to be informed for sure.
For sure.
If they were permitted, there could be the need for after the fact permits for a buyer, like so that, you know, that could be an issue. If like if when they wanted to sell, or right, is it when they wanted to sell?
So that's their choice,
Okay.
right? And it's a buyer's choice to buy something that doesn't have a permit, an element that isn't permitted, right? The place where it's going to impact immediately is on the appraisal. The appraiser is not going to give value to that 3rd bathroom. The appraiser is going to appraise it as a 3-bedroom house, not a 4-bedroom house. See what I'm saying? The appraiser can only give value for what is actually supposed to be there.
And then if they end up purchasing, this is what I was thinking, if they end up purchasing and then wanting to do work, can't there be an issue if there's not permitted stuff on the property?
Well, what you do then is you apply for after the fact permits for what's already there, or sometimes what people do is they apply for the permit to do the work as if it includes the work that was already done, and so and now they're gonna extend that room or make it bigger or whatever, so now they're gonna apply for the whole bathroom, right? Or they apply for another bedroom or whatever, and include the work and make sure it's all up to code, right? So there's 2 ways you can deal with that. That's totally up to the buyer. There's buyers that buy things that have unpermitted elements, and I go to visit them 10 years later and the things are still unpermitted. It's just amazing what people say is important to them. And that's okay. We all, right, when we're well aware of something, it becomes more of an issue. Yeah.
If it's our listing and another agent or a buyer contacts us about it, and there is work that's unpermitted, what should we say to them?
You tell them exactly what you know, which
Okay.
is, yes, the buyer did this 6 years ago, they put up a wall and added a closet to make a 4th bedroom. Or actually the buyers bought the house this way. This bathroom, for what we know, was built 15 years ago and was added by the prior owner. My clients bought it that way.
Also,
That's all I know.
in the listing in the Realtor remarks, there's probably a boilerplate phrase that Keller Williams uses, that the county records may not match the description of the property. Buyers to do their own due diligence is usually what it says. So in other words, it's on you, buddy, you gotta do your own homework.
Which isn't necessarily true in a court of law, right?
Right.
I mean, we say that,
We
and
say
it's
it.
kind of, it's our speak for, check it out, something's wrong here.
Right.
Okay, that's really what that means.
Exactly, that's what it means.
From, I just slightly off, but from the calls earlier, I just wanted to ask you, is there a shortcut in the MLS in Paragon for short-term versus long-term rental?
Mhm.
Yeah,
If you're looking
sure.
at condos?
Yeah.
So you can only see
Go
one
to
or the other?
customize, go to customize your search fields, go to customize, and go down and you'll see short-term rental.
And you
click
can
on
add it as an option.
Yes,
Oh, okay,
you need to go into the customize, not when you're in a spreadsheet, customize your search fields, right, in that page. Yeah, yes, sir.
Say the shoe's on the other foot and we're representing the buyer now, and we didn't do our due diligence on those tax records. That is on us now, right? They,
Yeah.
any, not even just tax records, but any like illegal improvements or anything like that. If they didn't know about that, that is our job to let them know it when you, okay.
Well, it's our job to encourage them to find it out either themselves. I do the search for them, right? All you can do is go in and look at the permits in Kiva. That's what Kiva is, that button in the dashboard.
Okay.
There's a Kiva button that lets you find permits. And even the tax record at the very bottom will tell you there are permits there. It doesn't tell you a lot about what they're for. So you need to go into the Kiva record. It's not just the tax record, it's going into Kiva to find out the permits on the property.
Okay, so Kiva and the tax records button
Yeah.
is step 3
Yeah,
here.
is step 3, so that you can say to your client, well, you know, we've got this 4th bedroom that really wasn't added with a permit, and we've got this other bathroom that wasn't added with a permit. So you need to keep in mind that the appraiser is not going to value those, right? This becomes an issue, I mean, clearly your client wants the house and you think it's competitively priced, and that's why you're thinking of making an offer. But if you're in a bidding war and you are now going to go over the asking price and because you really want this house, that could become an issue. The appraiser could come back and say, nah, you went too high on this house, I'm not giving it that value. And then you have to decide how to proceed from there, right? So that could happen, but we're talking about the Meninis.
Right.
We're talking about far fewer than the norm. Although there's a lot of properties with unpermitted elements, but.
There are
it's a
certain
lot.
neighborhoods where they
Yeah.
pop up,
Mhm.
Kahalui,
Behind the window.
Hey, Kihei's full of them too.
North Key.
Yeah, so, yeah, anyway. Okay, Bob, do us the 4th item.
Ensure the property is still available. There's a good one. Call somebody and say, is it still active? Before spending any time preparing an offer, because you'll prepare an offer and you work hours and hours and hours on it, and you find out the darn thing isn't for sale anymore. So even if your MLS listing is active, contact the listing agent to let them know that your client is considering making an offer. If it's off the market, let your buyer know immediately and promptly begin the search for another home, and I would interject, or you can write a backup offer and you get first backup position in case the one that they have falls out. I've had a number of sales happen to me that way, because we were the first ones to write a backup offer.
Yeah, lots of people don't wanna write backup offers. In this market, I encourage them.
Yeah.
We have enough stuff fall out that it's worth it. Yeah, absolutely. The other thing this really doesn't say quite straightforwardly, but is what it's saying is, call that other agent to say, have you received any other offers? If not, how many showings have you had? Are you expecting any offers? Right? I'm expecting an offer. No, I'm not expecting any offers. Well, how many showings have you had? Well, actually, I had 4 yesterday, and I've got 6 set up for the weekend. Ooh, right, that changes
Oh.
my urgency. He might not have had an offer yet. It's still on the market, but look at all that activity, right? So now I better move quickly. Whereas if somebody says, yeah, you know, I showed it to you guys yesterday, and I had 1 other showing the day before, and I've got 1 for Sunday. Okay, I got a little time here, right? And that's, if you don't ask, you wouldn't know this.
And that's the
So-
part I forgot to keep reading. It says, when speaking with the listing agent, build rapport and gather as much information.
Information,
That's
right,
exactly what you
right.
just said,
Yeah.
about the seller and the property as you can.
When you come and take the purchase contract and zip forms class from me, which follows next week, next Friday, I think it is, I'm gonna give you a list of questions to ask, so that you've got that and can put it in your notebook, so handy.
Would you say that I think you can, but some people say you shouldn't. You probably shouldn't, but ask, why is the seller selling? If you got a good agent on the other side, they're gonna say, because they wanna sell it, okay? If you got a goofy agent, they're gonna say, well, the woman has cancer, and, I mean, like my one person did, so it doesn't hurt to ask,
Yeah, and chances are you've asked at the showing if the agent was present, yeah, but if you haven't, that's always a good question, urgency. If you can establish urgency, and that's a good point, Bob, is just learn to ask the questions even that you're not allowed to ask, or that the seller's agent isn't allowed to answer, because some people don't know they're not allowed to answer that
Yeah.
question, and they answer it, a la, the woman has cancer. So, it's not allowed to say that,
No.
but, so they're supposed to have talked to their seller about, what can I say when somebody asks me, why are you selling? Right? That's what we're supposed to do. I write it right into my contract, in the listing agreement, I write it right in there, what do you want me to say? So that it's in writing, agreed to, got a signature on it. That's what
And
I
if you
do.
don't have that and somebody asks you, why is the seller selling? You can say, oh, come on, I can't answer that, they just wanna sell it. And that'll shut them up.
Well, I wouldn't do that, cause now you're making me feel silly. I would just say, they're just looking to sell, they're just ready to move on.
Just looking to sell.
Yep, just ready to move on. All right, next one, Marcus.
Ask questions of the listing agent to discover what's important to the seller. Find out their time frame and motivation for moving. This allows you to customize the buyer's offer to address the seller's most pressing needs.
Right, another way to put that is, specifically on timing, is how long or how quickly does your seller wanna sell, right? Oh my gosh, this is an elderly woman and she's lived here for 20 years and it is actually gonna take her a bit to pack up and she knows it. So she actually wants 30 days after final loan approval to move out. If you hadn't asked that question, you'd write a 45-day offer and get back a counteroffer or, have somebody else step in. So our goal is to write offers that get accepted. And to do that, you need to know everything you can about that seller. Okay, is there anything else? Are there any inclusions or exclusions, especially in these vacation rental condos that are furnished? Or better yet, condos that have been second homes to people, right? And they come for half of the year kind of thing. They'll probably sell it with all the furniture, but not all the knickknacks.
Right.
Or all the private things. So, is there anything included or not included that you want me to specifically mention in a contract? I say, yeah, would you please mention that the big mirror over the living room couch is not included? Okay, fine, So now you know that up front and can warn the buyer too. All right, back to you, Shaylin.
Alright, inquire about the activity on the property, such as the number of showings.
There you
Well,
go,
like you said,
there it
yeah.
is, yeah, there it is, right, you get that. All right, Cherish.
Obtain a seller's disclosure statement which provides details on any physical problems with the property of which the seller is aware.
That is a great idea, and it is not our custom here. So you will find agents resistant to that. Why do you need that now? We give that to you when you're in contract. And my answer to that is, well, wouldn't you rather give it to me now so that I'm aware and don't get upset when my client sees your seller's disclosure and wasn't aware of some aspects? So I think it's to our benefit if you just let me have it now. Just to share with you, I put the seller's disclosure into my documents in Paragon so that anybody can see the seller's disclosure who's interested in this property, right? To me, this makes perfect sense. I'm just letting you know it's not the custom here. So you might have to sell the idea a little bit, but it's worth it.
Since we know it's going to come up and it's a big part of the whole thing, why is it not a part of the custom? It would seem logical that, put it all out there, put it up front, people know
It would
going in.
seem logical, wouldn't it?
What the deal is with the house. If it's got a
I
leaky
have
roof, it's got a
no
leaky
idea.
You're gonna get into escrow and it's gonna come up inevitably.
I have no idea.
Okay, just seems like a smart thing to
I teach it in
do.
the classes in RAM,
Yeah.
and it's not catching on. They're not listening to
I
it.
mean, is there a counter that you know of, like why you wouldn't, or?
No,
No.
it's smart, it's a smart thing to do. When I'm taking a listing right now, and one of the first things I'm gonna do
Get that
is send him a seller's disclosure.
Yeah.
And if you ever have somebody that fills out a seller's disclosure and takes not to my knowledge and draws a red line all the way down,
That's
All right.
run,
Yeah,
but.
yeah, let's not go there, because that's a whole other conversation, right? How to fill out seller's
Yeah.
disclosures,
But I mean,
yes.
you want a good seller's
Yeah.
disclosure. The seller's disclosure shows whether they cared about the property, shows whether they took care of it or not.
And our last one, Jonathan?
Find out if there are or have been other offers. If so, what is their status or why did they fall through?
That's a good question, right? And sometimes they can tell you and sometimes they can't. Like, they can find out if they've been made aware of some repairs that were needed, that they didn't put in their seller's disclosure, it might behoove them to tell it up front. Well, it turns out the cesspool is failing. So, this cesspool needs to be replaced. I had one the other day where the house, had an entire addition that was not only illegally built, but it was built over a cistern. This is Makawao. Welcome to Makawao. And so the cistern needed to be filled in. We used to do underground cisterns, right, and have pumps to bring your water up. So that's how this house was built in Makawao. And there was just a lot of information, and it would have been best to disclose it up front. And the agent chose not to, and as a result, the buyer came back and negotiated. Wow. So it's just stuff happens. So you're better off just letting them know. I don't understand either why you wouldn't. Okay, next. Closing date, Bob.
Oh, where are we here? Closing date. Make sure that the closing date will work for your buyer, their lender, and the closing company. I throw in the seller. Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays are the best days to close because they're in the middle of the week. Therefore, you have an extra business day before or after if needed to complete the transaction. I don't have them do it on Monday because you have to do it on Monday and you have a mortgage, then they're paying interest for Friday and Saturday before you get to Monday. So you can save them some money by not doing Mondays. Anyway.
Yeah, on a Tuesday, the bank will fund on Monday, so they're only gonna pay interest for Monday.
Right.
But if you close on a Monday, their bank will have to fund Friday, and now your clients are paying interest Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Right.
And so, that's why we don't do that. All right, moving along, home warranty, we don't really have those here, so I'm not gonna go into that. The mainland, we just had our home warranty supplier withdraw from the island. And it's, I think, because we don't sell enough of them here. Yeah, yes, sir, question.
I realize, that you may have
I skipped
skipped
something.
on purpose.
No,
Did we just go from page 13 to page 16? The checklist for preparing.
oh, did I
offers?
do that? Oh my God, I went 2 pages.
Yeah.
Oh.
Checklist for writing an offer is on page
Yeah,
40.
I've got
We did.
checklist for preparing an offer, oh yes, and then number 2, I skipped right over that.
I'm
You-
big on checklists.
Oh my God, well, these are great, right? So, what did I skip here? On page 14, write the offer, keep these guidelines in mind. Ensure your buyer knows that all checks, earnest money, etc. are written at the same time the offer is written, right? You're gonna collect money, or you're gonna make sure they know how to wire transfer your funds, right? In my transactions, obtain the appropriate offer to purchase, well, you're gonna get your purchase contract in where?
In zip forms.
Zip forms is where your purchase contracts are, yeah, that's right. Bring your laptop or tablet with you when you meet with your client to review the offer and respond online. If I'm meeting with my client, which I love to, I mean, the more you can meet with your client and bond and build that relationship, the better. And they think your service is amazing when you take the time to go see them, right, wherever they are. I like doing things in paper. There's nothing wrong with doing things in paper, right? You're sitting with somebody, why not just have them sign on? It's more personal, yeah, it is. Now, we have lots of sellers that are on the mainland, and then I email it to them, and I make a phone appointment, and I take them through the contract over the phone, and they can click at the bottom and sign every page, or we make changes as need be, right? Yeah.
What, in person, what would you say, or not in person, but on island, what would you say your percentage is to zip forms to hard copies?
80% hard copy, 20% because I make the effort to go there.
Gotcha.
Yes, I will drive 45 minutes to go to you at the hotel, or to go to you at your vacation rental condo, or at your home, current home, to sign the documents with you.
Another point of contact, basically.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
I also believe very firmly in taking a client through a purchase contract. So that's a half an hour conversation, at least, okay, because they have questions. So it's really a wonderful meeting and conversation to have, yeah. All right, when your buyer makes an offer, they're essentially selling themselves to the homeowner, a cover letter, absolutely. Now here's the thing about the cover letter. Sometimes the buyers write them themselves, But basically what you wanna do is you wanna spend as much time complimenting the seller and the property that the buyer wants to buy, as opposed to focusing on the buyer. This is a place where fair housing violations can easily be, laws can be violated. For instance, if I say, here's a picture of my wonderful family and me and my 2 children and our dog want to live here happily ever after, is that okay? Do you see how that's not okay? Because what if I got another offer and it's a single guy? He didn't send a picture because we know it's a single guy and he didn't do that. But now we've got this family versus single person. So marital status and familial status are protected classes. We can't do that. So it hasn't been an issue here in Hawaii. It has been an issue in California. And usually what happens in California slowly but surely comes here. So I get people to play that down as much as possible. Talk about, oh my God, we love this condo. It's our dream come true. We can't wait to spend our lives there, and we love the back deck where we're gonna barbecue and have our friends over. You've taken such good care of the yard, blah, 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 blah. You can make that seller feel good.
Now here's our low ball offer. No, just kidding.
Whatever, but you know something? I have sold properties for a lower price because of a cover letter versus another price without a cover letter. It makes all the difference to a seller, doesn't it? It does. Sellers care about their properties. They want somebody else who's going to care about their properties. Yeah. All right. Humanize the offer. There we go. Create a buying loop. Well, we don't do that. What we do here is you're going to get your offer signed. You're going to put it into, let's say you got it signed in zip forms. When you get it signed in zip forms, it's going to come back to you as a PDF in your email. You're going to forward that email to the listing agent with your cover email. That's how we do that, right? We don't invite them into a loop. What's happened is all these programs proliferated out there, and agents tried to get people to go into my loop. No, go into my thing. No, go into my thing. And we're all like, no, I'm not going into your thing. You do that. I'm just sending you a PDF and you figure it out. So we don't put the seller's name into the signature loop, into that signature process. We let the listing agent do that. We just forward a signed offer, signed by our buyers, to the listing agent with our cover letter, our cover email. Okay?
I suggest also texting the listing agent to say, I just sent you an offer. If that's simple, because then they'll say, oh, and then they go check their email, as opposed to letting them find out 8 hours later.
Yeah. Absolutely, please let me know. I have had offers just appear in my email. I'm like, are you joking
You didn't
me?
even let me know.
Yeah, did you think like I'm living on my email? And it's because that agent gets dinged every time they get an email, and they're so used to looking at their phone for emails. I'm not, I don't do that. So you can't assume that other people are on their email all the time. So yes, good point. All right, checklist for writing an offer. Price and terms. Those are the elements of the offer we need to consider. So we're going to review our CMA, right? We've already done this. Review the seller's disclosure. What are the elements that we want conveyed with this property? In other words, is the refrigerator included? Is the stove included? Are those usually included?
Yes.
Yeah, they're usually included here, right? But sometimes there's an exception. Now, as you're writing an offer, where do you get that information?
The MLS.
Yeah, and I have noticed a lot of lazy listing agents lately who forget to put in the inclusions. And so you will see under the word inclusion, blank. Now you have to call the listing agent and say, I'm writing you an offer and you don't have any inclusions, and chances are they're gonna go, oh yeah, I forgot, or oh my God, I didn't realize that, I'm so sorry, but here's what's included. And so you wanna be sure to get that, because if you don't, now you're into a counter offer. Right? You don't want a counter offer. You want to write an offer that's going to get accepted. Earnest money. Earnest money is an interesting conversation here. Our earnest money deposits are usually about 1 to 2% of the purchase price. There are parts of the community where a $1,000 earnest money deposit is acceptable. That is predominantly in Kahului. Those people are culturally just different, and that's okay, it works out there sometimes. But just be aware that, generally speaking, we do 1 to 2%. So on a $500,000 condo, you can put $5,000 earnest money deposit and another $5,000 earnest money deposit in the second line, which is then due 2 days after the acceptance of J1 inspection period. Now, let me demonstrate this. If you were a seller and you're selling your property and you got 2 offers and they were identical, except one offers a $10,000 earnest money deposit and another $10,000 down, and the other one offers $5,000 earnest money deposit and another $5,000, which are you likely to take? Exactly, it's a stronger offer, right? So that's part of what we have to educate our buyers about. Our buyers often come from markets where they don't do that. So we just have to say, that's how it's done here. If you want to put your best foot forward, you're putting 20% down anyway. It's going to be my job to make sure that you do everything on time, so if you choose to cancel, you will get your money back, okay? Or if you don't get the loan, if you don't qualify for the loan, you will get your money back. Time for the seller's acceptance. Normal time for the seller's acceptance is probably 2 days. Right? There are other circumstances where you can make that shorter. Like if you want to put pressure on, you want to beat everybody else. It came on market this morning and your buyer wants it. You write the offer right now and you want an answer by 8 o'clock tonight. That's possible. Or by 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. So you're not giving the seller a lot of time, you're just trying to snag it. Usually calling the seller's agent again and asking, is your seller around to review offers? Oh no, he's on a ski vacation in Utah right now. It's a little hard to get a hold of. When will he be back? He's back on Saturday. Okay, so if I gave you until Sunday to review this, that would be sufficient? Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
How much time do you need?
How much time?
And they love you for asking.
Yeah. Financing terms, that's based on your lender, whatever the lender says in the pre-approval letter, how much they're gonna put down. Include that buyer pre-approval letter, and now you have to ask the lender, is the pre-approval letter based on income verification or not? Because we have a little checkbox in our contract that says, does this include verification of income or not? And so you wanna ask that question of the lender. And then now you're gonna have to put the timeline for how long does loan approval take? And this is where you have to figure out, what does the lender say and what are my number of closing days? So if I'm closing in 45 days, I might put conditional loan approval is due at 25 days. And then final loan approval is due 8 days before closing, giving the lender from 25 to 33 days to do final loan approval, and then the rest are 37 days, and then the rest are closing days. You cannot close in less than 8 days. The law requires the buyer to have 3 days to review the final loan estimate. They must be given 3 days to do that. And only then, when the buyer approves it, does the bank draw up the documents. And then the next day, the client can go and sign their loan documents, and they are probably gonna arrange for the transfer of funds. So that 3 day, and then you need 3 days to go to closing. So when you add all that up, and that doesn't make 5, that makes 8, okay? And I see lots of contracts written for 5 days, and I don't understand why we wanna rush our client at the very end. It is such a stressful thing for your client anyway. They're gonna go do the home inspection, they're gonna have to negotiate if the repairs weren't done, they gotta move, they gotta take possession of this. All this stuff is going on in their lives, and we're rushing them? It's not nice. So it's up to you to write the contract with enough days.
Should we ask the lender, like, how long do you need for this, or? is
Yes,
that-
that's what I'm asking you for
Okay.
the timing for the lender, and when the lender says, oh, Marion, she needs some extra time, so you want a 60-day close? They go, yes, 60 days, okay. And then how long do you need to get her a conditional loan approval? Why don't you give me 40 days to get her that conditional loan approval? Great. You can write the 8 days in for closing, that's okay. But you wanna confer with the lender about conditional loan date and overall timing.
Okay.
Okay, closing date, right, we talked about that already. Home warranty, there it is again. Did somebody have a question on home warranty? So home warranty is an insurance policy on the appliances and like like if the thermostat here stopped working, the thermostat would be covered, not the wiring to the air conditioner, but the thermostat and stuff like that. And I guess we weren't selling enough of them in Hawaii because American Home Shields, who is the predominant company that does that, left. And we don't actually have anybody else doing it. Yeah. So scratch that. Repair limits. Again, this is something we don't do because we don't discuss that up front. However, here's a way that I do this. A lot of people want as-is addenda. You'll see it in the listings, please include an as-is addendum. Well, it's a lot of chutzpah to ask for an as-is addendum when I'm the buyer and I'm gonna give you a lot of money for this unit and you won't even let me like inspect it first and decide. So what I say to my buyer is, you know what the seller is trying to achieve here is not to be nickeled and dimed to death. That's what they want. They don't want you to come after me because there's a torn screen and the door squeaks and the thing is, and the toilet paper holder is wobbly and you know, stuff. So what I say to the buyer is, how about this? How about we write an as-is addendum, but we say in the as-is addendum, the buyer shall cover any repair costs up to $1,000. And that way the seller knows you're not gonna nickel and dime them to bring a handyman in to fix all these little things. However, if there's a new water heater that's needed, or the washer and dryer aren't working properly anymore, or there's been a leak in the roof, or God knows what else you could find out, those things are now still negotiable, right? Because that's above $1,000. So now I've set a limit on my repairs, as opposed to giving a blanket as-is addendum, and now the seller can't come back and say, well, you signed an as-is addendum, you know, and we have this back and forth happening. So that's one of the ways that we can achieve this repair limit. Yes?
And then, is that also effective in the sense that if they really were more on the other side, you would find out? That they, I mean, I'm saying the listing agent might come back and say, oh no, the reason we wanted that as is because they're not doing anything, and they would just let you know that? I mean, you know, like the difference between a torn screen and somebody that's saying, no, they're not gonna do the washer, they're not gonna do the floor, they're doing nothing.
Right, they're
Which
doing
sometimes
nothing.
is the case, where
Which
they're just
sometimes
like, my
is the
seller
case,
doesn't want to do
in which case the seller's gonna counter you, or gonna ask you to resubmit the as-is addendum without that clause in it. And then your buyer can consider that, you know? And now the seller's made it very clear, hasn't they? So now you've had this conversation, which is kind of valuable. Seller will not do a thing, not a thing. And you say to yourself, that's fine. However, what if you find out the septic system fails and the septic system needs to be replaced?
That's a big deal.
Yeah, can you cancel? Yes.
Absolutely.
Now, here's the beautiful part about this. Your buyer might well say, I love this house. I'll take it with the septic system repair. They might. So that's up to your buyer, and you cross that bridge when you come to it, right? But in the meantime, you've had this conversation about seller won't make any repairs. So that's worthwhile. That's good to know, right? So, worth a try. Okay. Special clauses or contingencies, we try not to do those. When you come to the class next Friday, I'm going to show you how to do clauses and where they are. We have lots of pre-written clauses for you. We have addenda that you can use, so I'll be pointing those out to you. But you know something? I probably see 80% of the contracts without clauses. And what's good about that is they're clean. It's a clean contract. There is no One clause that is easy to put in is, what if you were buying a home and the seller tells you, the listing agent tells you, oh, the seller's in the process of repairing the garage door, which was a big concern to your client because when you tested it, it was like, and so they said, we want that garage door fixed. And the seller's already doing that. The seller already says, I'm fixing the garage door. Do you think you should put that in the contract?
Yes.
Yes, because what if the seller says, oh, I sold it, I'm not gonna bother fixing my garage door,
Mhm.
you know, they can change their mind, right? And it's not in writing. So that's one of those conditions you wanna write in a queue and says, seller agrees to repair the garage door 10 days prior, and by 10 days prior to closing. And why 10 days? Because we've got this 8-day closing process, and they can't make changes to the closing process if you want a credit to your buyer. Does that make sense? If you're not gonna change the closing statement to say the buyer's gonna be credited $1,200 for a new garage door or whatever, that would have to appear in the closing statement, that they're gonna get a credit. And you can't change that closing statement past 9 days, because the lender is preparing it and submitting it to the client. So we need to get those repairs done 10 days before closing. Okay, that's a lot of information in a morning, good for you. All right, now we're gonna take a look at a couple of scripts here, and I'm just gonna read these for you, just because I've read them before, to give you the idea, and then you're gonna do an exercise and present the offer. Let's see, presenting to the sellers, where it is. No, we don't do that until a little while later, so let's take turns reading these. You wanna do this, Bob? Give us one, give us script 1, when the buyer wants the seller to make repairs.
And you want me to read what's written there? or
Yeah.
What okay. Mr. and Ms. Buyer, until you have a physical inspection, we will not know how much these items will cost. And we could find that additional repairs we may want to negotiate. Consequently, you have 3 choices. You can offer the seller less money now to compensate for these items. 2, you can ask the seller now for a credit to repair these items using your own contractor. Or, I usually advise clients to wait for the physical inspection and negotiate all repaired items at one time. How would you like to negotiate this offer?
So we're gonna go on and see this idea, this technique of telling your client they've got 3 choices is really useful, because it makes them go, okay, what are my choices? Right? It just summarizes it for them, it makes it really concise for them to understand, what are my options here? And that's really what you've just done, right? Who wants to read the next one? Go ahead.
This buyer, there are 3 ways to negotiate a transaction. 1, you can make a low offer and run the risk of seller rejecting it or countering back at full price to compensate. 2, you can make an offer closer to the asking price and be less flexible if there is a counter offer. Or 3, you really want this home and are concerned that another buyer may purchase it. You can make a full price offer and give the seller what they want. It's your choice how you'd like to negotiate this offer.
Awesome. All right, everybody pick a partner, and we've got a couple of minutes to try these, to work them out. Go. Or, here, this way.
We got an odd number.
That's what I'm saying, I'll work with somebody, if somebody wants to work with me.
I've been odd my whole life.
Come back here.
All right, Jonathan.
So, just remember, you can role play here, the other person doesn't have to be silent, you can ask silly questions.
By the way,
If you-
did you see A Few Good Men when we did A Few Good Men?
No.
I don't have cider.
Oh, you would remember.
I was Jessup and he was Markinson.
You've
So
done this
we
before.
know each other.
Yes. Okay, you do the first one, go for it.
I think,
Okay, this buyer, until you have a
Yeah.
physical
The buyer
inspection,
wants
we
this.
can, I'll do the
we
next one.
won't know
Okay.
how much these
So I'm
items
representing the
cost.
buyer.
We could find initial repairs, we might
You're
be able
representing
to
the seller.
negotiate.
Okay.
And the buyer wants the seller to
You
be
have 3
prepared.
choices.
Okay?
One,
Okay.
you can make, you can offer the seller less money now to compensate for
I
these
have really
items.
good news for you.
2, you
Okay?
can ask the seller now for a credit to repair these
If the
items
home
using your
inspection
own
comes back
contract.
and you all,
Or
we both
3,
do the home inspection,
I
come back,
usually
they'll be
advise
85
clients to
cents.
wait for the physical
Well,
inspection
I want
and
3 of them.
negotiate all
We want
repair
3
items.
hundred fees.
How would you like to
Garage door.
negotiate this offer?
And we want the roof that
Well,
looks.
if I take option 3,
These other
what if
little
the
kid-like ones,
seller
we're not
says
gonna
no,
want.
they won't make any
But-
Then I would
repairs?
say.
Well,
That's
we
what we're gonna ask for.
don't
And
need
the
to
problem is,
actually make the
the guy
offer,
doesn't
you're
wanna
still
do
gonna
that.
get
You're gonna run
that earnest
into
money
that the
back,
next offer.
and,
Yeah, but then I lose the house.
well, if you really are in love with the
That's what we're
house,
asking for.
we can.
But we're not asking
offer
for the 85
at the
with
full
screws
price.
and turn all
And
the
it
way.
just depends on how much this means to you. Is this a house that you
We're
really
asking
see
for the
yourself
big
in?
Yeah, I really like this house, so why can't I, don't you think it'd be okay to ask for the garage door to be fixed in the
Absolutely.
contract?
Why wouldn't we?
So can we do that?
Absolutely.
That would make me feel better.
Okay, we'll do that.
Very
I'm on it.
nice, nice.
Is it, was that,
Okay.
have you done this?
So, really what I'm finding today, more than anything,
really
is
want
something
this
that
I don't know.
This is like a legitimate thing
You know,
that came up in the.
I'm assuming we've done the inspection. The inspection came back
I've
and there's
submitted about 8
14
offers, and
things.
one of them
Yeah.
have been
There's 3 of them.
accepted.
Oh,
And I'm starting, like,
You know,
four of
Okay,
them
yeah, no,
want the
wait,
same
no,
buyer,
you're
starting to realize he might be a problem
What am I
buyer,
supposed to give you?
low balls all the time.
yes.
Got it.
And then, it's, a lot of this is that I wasn't asking follow-up questions.
Good
This
for
has been
you.
very, very
Good
helpful.
for
I don't wanna give you
Because
these objections,
I'm
so
sorry,
you give me money.
Imposter syndrome,
Uh,
and I feel like I should know the question.
Oh,
And
oh,
this is-
hold that thought, there's a question here.
Yeah, we have a question.
Yes,
We're doing the first one.
Yes.
I'm representing the buyer.
Yes.
He's representing the seller.
And he just
Oh,
asked
oh,
for,
this is-
Right?
no, you're on page 17,
yeah,
you're making, the buyer wants the seller to make repairs, and you're talking to,
And I'm representing the buyer.
but no, is he actually talking to the
he's
seller?
talking to the buyer.
No, you're-
Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, until
You're
you,
talking.
you're the buyer.
I'm the
Yeah,
buyer.
you're the
buyer.
You're negotiating and I suddenly.
Oh, I
listening.
understand. I thought he was the agent
No,
representing
he's
himself.
the buyer.
But
So
what's
you're
the
the buyer.
motivation?
Oh,
What's your motivation? Understood.
yeah, exactly.
so what do you mean by?
So you're the
imposter
buyer.
syndrome?
Dude,
I feel